Yeah, Swamiji, in spiritual life, as well as I think as the householders, is there anything called as healthy competitiveness? Um, that was my question.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what is not competitive. Meditation is not competitive. There's no such thing as competitive meditation. So if we take one of those aspects of spiritual life, namely meditation, then of course, any aspect of future orientation or past orientation, anything that is not this present tense, and anything that avoids, and that anything it engages, any sense of first person singular, namely I and mine, that is no longer meditation. Why is that? It's because the objective is put there. The language of Swami Vivekananda is quite clear. It assists us by relating spiritual life to our normal, so-called normal secular life, to say that the goal is to manifest this divinity from within. So it sets out a goal, and normally when you set out a goal, we put something, some ideal somewhere, and then we try to achieve it. But should we elbow everybody out the way as we do so? In that sense, no. Should we have any goal at all, since we always talk about living in the present? Yes, we should set a goal in our understanding in future time as a beginning position. A beginning position requires us to be motivated to go towards something. But as time goes on, a more natural position occurs to us, because anything that is in the future will engage such things as competitiveness, such things also as anxiety. It puts pressure. So competitiveness in spirituality would infer, or we be compared to any kind of secular competitiveness, which says, in some way, I am striving towards something. I want to do better than others. But the inference with that, unfortunately, is others won't do better as well as me. That's the difficulty. So while we should make every effort to achieve our goal using the temporary language that we can use, we should understand it's a starting point and has nothing to do with anybody else. It's like runners running in a race, in a short-term racing competition. We want to all get to the end of the 100 meters, and we want to get there first. That's all good. But if you look behind you to others, then you will falter. You will have wasted a split second here and there, and you won't arrive at the finish line first. So never mind about other people. You have enough trouble on your own. And so spiritual life really is to take all the resources around you, and without looking at others, then you will look ahead for yourself and see what is necessary for yourself. The first thing in spiritual life is to acknowledge, what is my status quo? What is the current condition that I find myself in? And making that honest assessment, this is why we do the Enneagram also, is to see what is the thing that I call I, what is the status quo in understanding what that means? And from there, what steps do I have to make to go forward? You can take life as a kind of supermarket. So what do I require? Somebody else may require something different. To compare any aspect of spiritual life to competitiveness is akin to going into a supermarket and making sure your trolley is first and pushing all the other trolleys out of the way. But really, we have to learn first, how can we, first of all, what do we require, and how can we remove any obstacles in our way toward it? That's what we should be focused on. So spiritual life, more and more as time goes on, is to take us away from a future orientation of speculation, to take us away from the past, which is normally prefaced with the question, why? And we should rather say, why not? What next? Next means the next second that becomes this current now, and proceed in this way. The more we do that, the more we get to recognize the sacred environment in which we are placed. There are two ways to approach this subject of a goal. But let me put it in this way. Supposing you're climbing a mountain, the top is your goal. Then put your goal there and then forget it. And the rest you spend all your attention in the journey. If you don't do that, of course, you'll miss the joy of all the flora and fauna that is around you, the beauty of the path that you're taking. Don't worry about other people's path. Acknowledge that they have the right to be on whatever path they choose. And any competitiveness, unfortunately, will be a retrogressive step for you because it will engage self-effort. It'll engage the idea of I. I meaning I identify myself as an embodied entity. This is our primary difficulty, that we are an embodied entity. And being an embodied entity, we are trapped in some way and we need to be free. It's not a bad beginning point. It's a very, very bad ending point. Because the truth is we are not trapped. That is our illusion. Now this is of course heading toward the highest conclusion that Vedanta puts out, namely that of non-dualism. Acknowledging that we are dualists, is it wise to teach non-dualism and then go along the journey? So two approaches are there. Bearing in mind that in this day and age, according to Swami Vivekananda, we should teach this non-dualism from the very rooftops. We should shout it. But it wasn't really so in the previous days. And to some extent, it is not suitable now. What do we mean by that? Well, there are some people who it will create confusion with. Most people thinking I am and putting an identity there, not acknowledging that it's only for passport purposes, will not really acknowledge very wisely, and it will be hugely confusing for them if you say, you see, this God that you're worshipping, thou art that. Because they will immediately jump to the conclusion that I am God. Two results of that. One will be, if you take this non-dualism seriously, but still have this concept of embodiment, you will then cease all your effort. You will become a fatalist. Everything is one. Why should I bother? Everything is God. Why should I look for God? God is here. That would not be wise. And the second thing is, it will be confusing because it interpreted as the self. When I first taught this Vedanta philosophy to a group of people, we were in various places in Dublin and the Dublin area. And there was somebody who joined the class kind of in the middle. I was talking about the self. The self in the Vedanta philosophy is a twofold thing. One, it can mean aham, that is the embodied entity. Embodied psychophysical entity. The second way of using the term self is in terms of Atman. That is said to be the self. In English, when we put it as capital S, because it is a transcendent position. It is a knower, a thinker, a witness. It is an entity that on investigation, you come to a final conclusion about, and you cannot go any further with it. There's a final datum when we start our internal investigation. And so for a long time, he thought that we were talking about the embodied entity, the identity. And then only later, out of sheer confusion, did he then say, but surely this is all selfish. And then it occurred to me that he'd been understanding this word self in a wrong way, in a way that has not been understood properly, in a way that wasn't meant to be interpreted in this way. It was meant to be the very Upanishadic statement of Atman. The Buddhists also have taken it wrong because Atman, they deny, because Atman also means the self with a small s. And they say we don't acknowledge anything like that. There are two approaches to come to this highest realization. The one approach will require great boldness. And boldness, so I have to be cautious about this term in Ireland, by the way, for those who are not from here. Bold means naughty. It doesn't mean what we conventionally mean in the normal English sense, not according to how we use it in Zimbabwe anyway. So bold means brave, courageous, strong, all of those qualities. So go before, be an adventurer. Go out to unexplored territory. Don't be afraid. It means lack of fear. And this has been kind of adopted in Ireland as, okay, you're in the naughty corner, you're bold. So we have to be prepared for a sporting attitude. We have to take the game of life as a game. First of all, we have to persuade ourselves that it is so. And then we have to see if we can play the game of singles with the Lord of the universe on one side of the net. This example I give often, and so I'm not afraid to give it as many times as you require it. You see, playing a game of doubles is easy. A devotee can hit the ball with the Lord on the other side. The Lord, being omnipresent, can go instantly in any place. So you play a game, Lord, you take this ball, and then my partner will return it. And please make it easy. Let me beg of you, make my life easy. Give me only the balls that I like. Give me only good shots that I can easily return nicely. Exaggerate the example. See? Put the ball as high as you can. Then, imagining it's Wimbledon, I'll go away. I'll have a cup of tea, have some strawberries and cream and all of that, as they do there in Wimbledon. By the time I've come back, the ball is only just now coming down, and just I go like this and go off again. See, no spectator will ever buy a ticket to watch a game like that. You want something that is exciting. And with modern technology, where the bat that you hit the ball with has become so streamlined, so light, made from carbon fiber now, that you hardly notice it. You can then put less power in, and you can direct it more accurately. And then with practice, you can direct it where you want. And you can serve the ball at such a speed, I think the IBM computers compute that so maybe 100 kilometers an hour, something like that. And with one strike, the opponent will duck, and we call that an ace. Point is there. If you continue like that, nobody will watch that game either. There has to be some rally. There has to be some skill, some enjoyment, some creativity. What enjoyment is there in any sport, which is so easy, so lacking in skill, that anybody can do it? There is, to sport, there are several factors. Whether you win or lose, your skill is employed, and employed to the very best. And secondly, yes, there is a point and a purpose to the game, but we also have to understand, if we view life in this way, there's no I or me in it. It's to our disadvantage. Because I, as interpreted by myself in a normal way, don't really exist in it because it's a game. I'm just the actor on the stage. And secondly, there's no possession involved in it. There's nothing belonging to me. With this understanding, I can now play the game as an adventure. What will my prayer be? Lord, never mind about doubles. Doubles with you, that's easy. You yourself are my partner. I hit the ball. Instantaneously, you're on the other side, returning the ball to yourself. Instantaneously, you're on the other side, returning it. Let us not play a game like this. Let's play a game of singles. Let me stand in the corner. You send your hardest ball to me. Send your most striking ball to me. And in this way, I will maybe hit it with all the skill I can muster. Or if I happen to miss it, send it again, send it again, send it again, until I can nicely return it with the same force and speed that you sent it. Now hit it in this corner, now hit it in that one. Wherever you hit it, I'll have enough skill now that you gave to now play it wherever you put it. Such a person has a different attitude to life. They'll have an adventurous attitude to life. They won't be competing with anything. They'll be playing a game, a loving game of tennis with the Lord of the universe, seeing the fun in it, seeing the sportsmanship in it, not worrying whether there's a loss or a gain in the game. Only the skill of playing. Play your best. Play the game very well. If you view life as a sport or a game. Now, we have no other reason to think that this universe is anything other than that. If you ask, why is this universe here? Why does it have these ups and downs? Why is it that there is a balancing act between outgoing forces, ingoing forces? Why is it necessary to have peaks and hollows? Why is it necessary to have joys and disappointments? What is this life all about? So, two ways to approach it. One, we can approach it as a beggar. Lord, please give me. Or we can approach it as, Lord, please give me the most skilled curveball to me, because my faith tells me that it comes from you. And I also have the skill and the capacity to hit it back nicely and play the game very well. Why would you put me in a game like this if you didn't think that I had all the assembled capacity to play it well? Let me do it. At the end of the day, no curveball came. Maybe your prayer should be, Lord, Lord, you forgot to give me the curveball today. Everything was smooth today. Give me something more adventurous. Such an attitude will give us fearlessness. And if you ask what is the goal of Vedanta, it is apaya, fearlessness, complete fearlessness, walking through life with no aspect of doubt, temptation, or fear, boldly going forth, asserting with great faith that this is God's game, if you want to put it in theological terms. There is a text which goes for the end game. Not even the Prasthanatraya. Prasthanatraya means the great Upanishads, the Vedanta, the literature of Vedanta, and the basis for it. Couched in dialogue language, question-answer language, as we're doing here. Secondly, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and all the tying together all these strands to make it comprehensible for us is called the Brahma Sutras. These three pieces of literature are the literature of the Vedanta philosophy. Prasthanatraya. But the Upanishads state something boldly, but couch it in calming language, in language which will not state it and sustain it, will give us a number of different approaches to it. Certainly it's bold. Certainly it has what we're looking for in terms of asserting what is the truth, but flavored with a number of other things. Bhagavad Gita, that will be a little bit softening too. Softening of one fact, the fact of oneness. It'll declare it, but also give us other options too. The Brahma Sutras too will deal with things in a dialectic manner, asserting it here, giving us another approach there. But there's one text which boldly asserts this oneness, this truth, this non-dualism, absolutely upfront. This text is a very ancient text, even mentioned in the Mahabharata, therefore preceding it. And it is called the Ashtavakra Gita or Ashtavakra Samhita. There's a story about it, of course. We can tell the story of how it came about. There's a certain mythology that goes with it. But it is absolutely saying this is what this manifestation of divinity looks like upfront. So perhaps it is a better approach to say, this is the truth. It is the highest truth. You may not understand it. You will not understand it as yet. But leave it there as a goal and then work toward it. And then whenever you have a difficulty, you can bring out this non-dualistic tool and play the game well, knowing that it is a game and knowing that it is a one without a second, and knowing that the game itself, the bat that you hold, the ball that is delivered to you, the court, the net, the audience, the spectators, the umpire, are all nothing more than a changing entity that we give a permanency to because we call it existence. That's our error. And then coming back, as it were, and saying, all right, let us now develop the skills to play. The other approach will be to say, as Buddha did, let me not tell you what the end is, but play the game, learn to play the skill. Let me give you an eightfold path. On that eightfold path, you can then clarify the mind. You can engender what we call sattva. You can take away this I and me and mine aspect by purifying the mind through various practices. Right living, right thinking, right meditation, right livelihood, all of those things. We put it out. Then if somebody asks you a question, is there an end goal in this? Is there a God somewhere? Is there a soul somewhere? The Shakya Muni, the great silent one of the Shakya clan, remains silent. Didn't answer, didn't say yay or nay. Says, look, please, here's a path. At the end of it, you find out what you find. Supposing I'm here in Dublin, I want to go off to Galway. Maybe somebody doesn't tell me what's at the end. Like the old voyagers venturing out into the oceans, only seeing a horizon and nothing more, not understanding what lies at the end of it. Those who think that it's an edge and they'll fall off, they don't venture out. Those who suspect when we reach that horizon, another horizon will be there. Ultimately, some land will be there. The Vikings, for example, ventured out, discovering America way before anybody else, venturing out into an unknown environment. There's a very catchy song from the probably 1930s, 1940s. I joined the Navy to see the world, but what did I see? I saw the sea, endless sea before me. But surely something is there. Surely I have the internal drive and spirit to discover what is there, the unknown thing. This attitude, is it competing? There's no competition involved in it. So that's one way. Venture out into the unknown, see for yourself what is there. The other way is to say, I know what is there. What is there, you won't understand now. It's incomparable. Nevertheless, I'm going to tell you. Now take your ship, and here's your compass. Here's your direction. Go as you like. The other method also is saying, here is your map. Here is your compass. But don't ask me what is the end. You find out what you find out. Going to Galway, don't tell me there's a Galway. Don't tell me there's a place like this. Leave it as an unknown factor, question mark. But here's a road, take it. Now, if you are saying, there is a Galway, it looks like this, look it up on the YouTube, find it out from those who've been there, find out what places you want to visit, where you're going to eat, where will you stay. Now, here's the road also. That seems somehow more satisfying to most people. And if you have to pass Athlone on the way, which is an intermediate place, don't think that because you're going to Galway, you're eliminating Athlone. You're going through it. You're climbing out the mountain just because there's a top to it. Don't think that you'll eliminate level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, where the elevation is less, the vista is less. But as you climb, the vista increases. As you climb, you get more experience. As you climb, more is open to you until the top the whole thing is seen completely. And then an aha moment. That is it. Then feel free, if you like, to come down the mountain again. Go up and down as many times as you like. Unless you have a wish to stay there, unless the goal is everything, so much so that there's no wish to return and no possibility of returning either, like the salt doll that walks into the ocean and never comes back. Some rare entities, they come back. Hey, come on, let me take you. Come up the mountain with me. So this Ashtavakra is a very significant text because it tells you, my dear fellow, this is the truth and this is the goal, and I'm going to unashamedly tell you, nothing will be left out. Now, a very interesting part of this, there's a section, 9th chapter, the 7th stanza is very interesting. And you may have noticed that during all these talks, I tried to steer you toward what are the elements of this mountain you're going to climb. These are called what? The tanmatras. Tanmatras, all the subtle elements. And it's from the subtle elements that are unseen, undetected, normally speaking, that come out in a more concrete form, as eyes, ears, nose, and so on, and all the environments. After all the objects of the senses are the same material components that makes nose, eyes, ears, body. All the cells of the body are made from the same potatoes and so on that other things are eating, same material elements, the same atomic structures, but at the end of it, the same subtle waves that are going on. These mere elements are subtle, but they are God's graces. Somebody asked me, do you believe in angels? Yes, absolutely. These are called tanmatras. God's angels making the crooked path straight for you, giving you a minimum opportunity for a minimum effort, and the rest is doing it's doing what it does. It is expanding, it is making permutations and combinations, and eventually giving us what we want. Therefore, time and again we tell. The other day we were talking about the Kalpataru tree, that anything you wish for will come about. But what's the mechanism for it? The mechanism for it is the thought that you think is being used by you independently. You possessing it, not understanding or knowing or even inquiring, where is it coming from? This grace that we call thought is then making its effect. It is a suction that is being organized for you with all the departments, as it were, of these subtle elements arranging themselves suitably and then condensing. Something like water that through its evaporation comes up into the sky, leaving the salt behind in the oceans and forming big associations of clouds and moving and traveling with the Earth's own rotation, and then coming and pausing a little bit and giving us rainfall. And from the rainfall, all the water required for all the organic crops that we can pick, transform now into a human body. See the drama that's being played. We're involved in this drama. So this 7th stanza of this Ashtavakra song is a very interesting thing. Pasha bhuta vikaranstam bhuta matra yatartataha. See the changes that are there in existence. We look out and say, this exists. My job exists. COVID virus exists. Lockdown exists. Politicians exist. Even Donald Trump exists. All these things exist in our estimation. But the President of the United States, only there anyway for 4 years, will go. This thing that is before you will go. This COVID virus will go. Anything that comes will go. That's its nature. But somehow we don't notice it. It's like looking at a film being made from small, still pictures. When we are small, we understand this. Somebody draws a stick figure, and then the next stick figure, the foot is raised a little higher. Next stick figure, the leg is there, the arm is changed, and so on and so forth. You flick it round. The eye can't keep up with the speed that is presented. And we see it as a moving thing. All these still pictures encased in space and time move quicker than the eye can catch. And we see it as one moving continuum, what Einstein calls space-time continuum. It's not ending. It's something that is continuously rolling forward. We register it as existence, and the characteristic of existence is something that does not change. But we are hooked into a series. We think there's a past. We acknowledge there's a present. The present will soon be replaced by the future, and the past will have gone and have gone onto a train that we call the past. That's the way we view it. That's the way we think. But is it really so? Even Einstein wrote in a letter, having spoken well about the whole relativity of space and time, in his special relativity, he says, time is an illusion, but a very real looking one. It looks real. It seems to be real. So time is a framework that is used for us to understand, firstly, how things are moving and to relate to it and play the game. Without that aspect of time, we don't know the tennis ball is coming toward us. We don't know that we have to wait until it arrives and then swing the ball, keeping the eye on it, and hit it, combining all the force, direction, and skill that we choose. So time is necessary to play this game. The space is also necessary to adhere to the rules of the game and to make any sense of it. But this great sage, Ashtavakra, is telling us, he's having a conversation with his student, Janaka. See the changes in existence as Tanmatran, Buddha Matran, that is, as intrinsically subtle elements, unseen waves. And these are unseen, subtle waves of existence. Then he makes this remarkable statement that gives us a clue. How do we deal with this? He says, look upon the modifications of these elements as nothing in reality, but the primary elements themselves. And you will, at once, instantaneously, are the words used. Takshanad bandha nirmuktaha swarupasto bhavishyasi. Instantaneously, he says, you'll be at once free from bondage and you'll abide in your true self. What a wonderful, wonderful formula. This escapes us very often. When we look at something, when we hear something, touch something, taste something, we can resolve all of this into one small batch. The subtle elements, their combinations. When we look at rainfall, we should understand what is its history. And when it comes down to us, we had no clue at one point it was vapor. You see how if we're fortunate for people like myself, it's fortunate because in Zimbabwe we don't have snow. But for those who are struggling and so on, then it's unfortunate. But what a beautiful thing snow is. But it's dead, it looks dead. Who would ever suspect that a little heat, a little pressure will make it into a life-giving liquid called water that is a life-sustaining thing? So the snow isn't fixed in that form. It changes. Who would suspect that all the things around us that we see made from gold are anything to do with gold? We don't register them in terms of substance. We register them in terms of how they look, their name and form. Bangles, bracelets, watch straps, necklaces, cups. All of these things we register in these forms. If you ask somebody, Have you seen these special Romanov eggs that are made, so well coveted throughout the world, made from gold and diamonds and so on? They don't say, oh, gold and diamonds. They say, oh, the Romanov eggs. The Romanov eggs, they say. So this is the way we think. Supposing we shift our thinking and go to the substance of it, what will we find? We'll find all these subtle elements, and ultimately we'll find only one thing: gold. There's no gold and the ring. There's no gold and the bracelet. There's only gold fashioned into all these different forms. We have to get used to that idea. Now come back to the original question. Where's the competition in all of this? Will we elbow somebody and say, I understand this is gold. You may think of it differently. Good luck to you. So in order to see this, in order to understand this, something is necessary. A process has to be necessary. This highest conclusion then is registered in another stanza, and we can move on to chapter 15 and the fourth stanza of this. And you see how that looks. That's 9, 15. Now in chapter 15 and the verse 4, this is said. Na tvam deho na te deho bhokta karta na bhavan. That is, we can go through a whole process to arrive at a final conclusion. But let's look at what is this final conclusion. We then have to go to the 16th verse to find out where's the final conclusion. I'm working off a Kindle, so it's difficult to maneuver. So I have to thumb through 16 verses to find it. 16. We're nearly there. 17, I went too far. So what do we find there in the 16th? It is through your ignorance alone that the universe exists. In reality, you are one. There is no individual self with a small s or supreme self other than you. This is a very bold statement to make. It doesn't equivocate anywhere. It is telling you straight out that this is the so. The actual text will go like this. The Sanskrit aspect of it will tell us. Taveva agyanato vishvam tamekaha paramarthatha tatto anyo nasti sansari sansari cha kachana. This universe, Vishram, appears really only what? Due to ignorance. Now we have to pause a while to understand that, to let that sink in to us. Having said that existence requires change. Well, your mistake is you see this change and you misinterpret it as a solid existence. Secondly, if you see all of these changing things as permutations, combinations, and so on of subtle elements, instantly understanding the unreal nature of that, instantly seeing the bottom line on it, you will be free. Free from what? Free from the ignorance now that is mentioned, and that ignorance produces pain, produces an erratic reaction. And we all want something more solid, something more stable than that. The universe appears real only due to ignorance. If you say to somebody in any context, in a church or in the office, by the way, all of this universe is only an appearance, and it's there because there's something in front of us veiling it called ignorance. In reality, you alone exist. There's no second. When I do something to you, I'm doing it to myself. When I hurt and scandal against you, I'm doing it to myself. When I ignore your needs, I'm doing it to myself. When I play cruel jokes on you, I'm doing it to myself. When I wish you misfortune, I'm doing it to myself. There only one self is there. And all this activity is all on the surface. Apart from you, Tato anyo nasti, apart from you, nothing exists. Worldly, unworldly, or otherwise. Not this world, not another world called a heaven. Nothing else exists. Only this much exists. Now, this is a declaration, and where's the logic behind it? Fortunately for us, we go back to the fourth stanza to find out what is the logic behind it. What is the progression that comes to this, makes this conclusion? You know, in philosophy, you start off with an axiom. You start off with a declaration. I'm proposing this. You don't have to believe it, but here's the supporting arguments going with it. So what are the supporting arguments? Na tam deho na te deho bhukta karta na va bhavan. Neither are you this body, nor is the body yours. Let us pause a while. This body, you are not that. Even if I state it, you don't believe it. And if you don't believe it, it's because the whole of your life support goes if this is declared. We spend our whole life putting ourselves in an embodied position with a fleeting, unstable mind, a body that is subject to defect and disease, a jumping mind, and drawing a kind of castle around ourselves, a boundary, so that I am here, but you are there. And this says, if you now move away, take this line between you and rub it out, then you'll find there's only one thing there. And it's like waves. But these waves are graces, are glories, are angels. They are arranged so that we can play the game. These are the fundamental rules of the game that we call laws. These are the various ups and downs that we call the universe. But they will come and they will also go. So, stating the highest conclusion. But how do we know I'm not the body is a good question. Neither are you the doer of actions, nor are you the experiencer. You are consciousness, the eternal witness, one without expectations. So stay happy. It is because of the original statement that all of these things that we declare as existent are changing. The body changes. Actually, the body changes its molecular clothing every 7 years, other than the eyes. 7 years ago, you had a brand new body, different body. The eyes retain for a little longer. It's constantly changing. You know it yourself. I don't have to point out to you that you are not the same, physically speaking, now that you were at the age of 5. And we certainly know that it won't be so in the future. Don't look in the mirror and declare the mirror is a liar. It's not. It's telling you the truth. It's telling the truth about changes. And it's telling the truth about the seer can never be seen. You can never look at a total image of yourself, even in a mirror. You're only seeing your reflection. And don't think then, this body is not yours, then whose is it? Accumulation of all these waves, does it belong to anybody? Well, the body is not yours. In other words, there is no I doing things, and there's no mind receiving things. There's no possessiveness. There's no prophet actor, but we're playing the role. What is ignorance? Ignorance is endorsing. No, there's no role to play. This is me. You ask somebody unfamiliar with these ideas, who are you? They may not answer directly. They may circumvent the answer. They may say, I am a clerk in an office or whatever it is. They'll describe a job. I'm an IT specialist, whatever it is. Or they'll give a name. Or so name and occupation we know. Well, all we've understood is whatever's on your passport. We have no insight into the person. Because the person, generally speaking, doesn't know. An assumption is made. I am the body. And I have certain characteristics, they call it personality. It creates and manifests itself as behavior. And that total package is what I call I. But don't be disappointed if the I disappears, as it will. Neither are you the body, nor is the body yours. Neither are you the doer of actions, nor are you the experiencer of the actions. You are, having said what you are not, you have to say, what are you? You can't leave it there. You are consciousness. There's no other aspect of it. You are consciousness, the eternal witness, and one without expectation, so stay happy. If you don't understand that, you'll be unhappy, momentarily happy on occasions when things are all right, when all conditions are conducive toward happiness. But consciousness never changes. Consciousness itself is subjective. It is self-aware. It is not a nothing. It is not an emptiness. It is not a void. It is not a shunya. And it is the eternal witness of all the events going on. You mentioned yesterday to a group of people that is like watching a performance on the stage. You don't have the stress of playing the parts. You're not the producer, you're not the director, you're not the actor, you don't have to learn your lines, nothing like that is happening. You're in the audience, you've paid your money and you sit there comfortably in a nice chair and you wait, there's an interval at some point. If the play is boring, you might look forward to that, but you don't have the anxiety. And if you're a reviewer, you can go and take notes and say this play was good or this play was bad. This player, I roared out laughing, or unfortunately the acting was substandard. So just hold on. No, there's a bucket there at the back. Yeah. You offer it here first and then put it in the bucket. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. So you are the eternal witness and therefore the enjoyer, and without expectations. If something is solid, if something is existence itself, then what expectations will you have? There's no time involved, there's no past, no present, no future. You can't understand it from the human point of view. And because of this, you stay happy. Are you not happy when there are no names and forms, when time and space goes away, when you don't have to worry, what will people say about me tomorrow? This is called a deep sleep. In a state of deep sleep, all those anxieties go away because of this oneness, but it doesn't last. Although it's close to that consciousness, it doesn't last. And then attraction and repulsion are the nature of the mind. And you are not the mind. So we dealt with the body. Now what about the mind, the next level? The next level of subtlety. You are not the mind, not at all. And the problem is the I gets identified with the mind. But the mind is just personality. When we do the Enneagram, we make sure that we understand persona means the mask. What we call a personality, identifying with myself, is like an actor in the ancient days of Greek drama saying, I am the mask that has a smile, the mask that has a frown, the mask that is hostile, the mask that is victorious. This is how Greek drama took place. How do we know what people's emotions are? We have to look at the masks, but some entity is behind the mask. You think you are a mask. Comparing it to the mask of Greek drama, you are a piece of wood with a fixed expression, playing to the expectations of others. Not at all. You are pure conscious self, without desires. From this point of view, don't ask me, oh, I have all these desires. You are pure consciousness. You have no desires. It's only because you thought you are a mind with desires that you say it. Without distortions, everything is absolutely clear. And therefore, be happy. Everything is all ending with, therefore, be happy. Understanding this, your happiness is there assured, self-explanatory, self-revealing. Sarva bhuteshu cha atmana, sarva bhutani cha atmani. All beings exist in the self, and the self exists in all beings. If there's only oneness, it has to be like that. Knowing this, be without ego. Be indifferent and be happy. Vishvam svurati yatridham taranga eva sagari. Tatvameva na sandeschin murti vijvaro bhava. The universe springs from you, just as waves from the sea. A useful analogy. You are consciousness itself, like saying, I am the ocean itself. Do not doubt that. And so be without anxieties and worries. Everybody complains, I have so many anxieties and worries. So you didn't study this. And then continuing, trust yourself in this way, trust yourself, do not be deluded. You are the Supreme Self in the form of knowledge. You are beyond nature. The body is covered with attributes of nature, and it comes, it stays, and then it goes. The self neither comes, nor does it go. So why are you unhappy about it? Why do you lament over it? When the body goes, why are you lamenting over it? When it went in a dream and dream asleep, you never lamented. You were joyous when you came back to a waking state. But the body may exist until the end of time. Then again, it may be gone. Even if you think that is infinite. Supposing you think that there's some kind of bodily resurrection somewhere. No, and even at that, it'll end. It may be gone. Where is the gain from it? And where is the harm? You are the state of pure consciousness, prepared to play this game. The universe rises and subsides within you naturally as waves in an infinite ocean, but you neither gain nor lose from it. You are the state of pure consciousness, and this world is not separate from you. Nobody can compete, no other person to compete with. Therefore, what can be considered unacceptable or admirable, and how you are alone in this calm, conscious, stainless space. So where is birth? Where is action? Where is ego? You are one, but appear as many of your reflections. Doesn't gold appear different from bangles, armlets, and anklets? That is me, that is not me. Renounce all such distinctions. Decide that yourself is everything. Have no other resolutions and be happy. The universe appears real, is where we started from, only due to ignorance. In reality, you alone exist, and we have seen the built-up arguments that come to this conclusion. So, the ultimate answer to all these questions lies really in this non-dualistic point of view. We have to assert it as one method, assert it by in the same way as we assert a goal. This is the ultimate state of our understanding. And then take measures to realize it, removing obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. There are two ways to remove this idea of the ego obstacle. One is to put ourselves as a devotee, as a child, somebody who sees an entity not externally, not in an extra cosmic way, but inside everything, just as this says, the self is in everything, but goes on to say, everything is in the self. To get that immanent understanding, that is one way. Another way, and you can put it in religious terminology also, to say, see God in the other. And then to bring up all the forces of your imagination, which say, let me recreate the Lord with all his angels and heavens and clouds in front of me in my very vision. May everybody I encounter, let me see that God inside, shining through the eyes. The other method will be to see that this Lord of the universe, in an amorphous way, is operating through all these names and forms, through all heads, all hands, 1,000 heads, 1,000 hands, 1,000 eyes, not just here, but when we look up into the sky, when we look at all the galaxies and stars, when we look at anything that moves, we can see a pouring out of this entity. Either way, it is necessary to take away the sense of embodiment. You can leave what we've just read as the highest conclusion, but keep it in the back of your mind always, not making the mistake that this self is the body. And we may not understand anything more than that, but keep at least the concept, abstract as it may be, supported by profound logic, and then work toward it. The original question was, is there any competitiveness in this spiritual life? No. Because competitive requires this endorsement of I and me and mine. And that's your big obstacle that you have to surmount. We do it through the Enneagram, in a sense, because it's not a standard ego. Try to understand what the component parts are to make you think this. And then having understood that, understand everybody made the same mistake in their own way. But now we have to shift our understanding. Look to something different. Because you see, some people may think that religion is also spirituality. But if you introduce this competitive in religion, this is just an extension of I and me and mine. We take this personally, individually, and one of the components that we put into the melting pot of identification is to say, I speak a certain language, I'm proud of it. Tamil is the ancient language. Forget about these Hindu and Sanskrit and so on and so forth. This is my nation, for example. Or this is my culture. Or this is my color. Or this is my tradition. And the most telling aspect of your culture, that aspect of your culture that is the most resistant, that is the most important and significant to people, is their religion, their religious culture. And it comes out collectively. My religion alone is true. Everybody has to be a Muslim, or everybody has to be a Christian, and even intra-religious, intra-faith, not just interfaith, intra-faith. My aspect of Christianity is true. It's an old standard joke, you see, of the person, a very respected person, led a wonderful life, good life. So naturally he goes to heaven and St. Peter greets him and he says, welcome. We're expecting you because you deserve the heavenly rewards. Such a good life you live. You fed the poor. You led a pure and chaste life. Come in. And then I'll show you around. And then as he comes to the some of the aspects and some of the glorious nature of the heavens, there's a huge wall. And St. Peter says, shh, we have to creep past this one. And he says, but, he says, oh, shh. And they get past the wall. He said, what was behind that wall? He says, it's the Roman Catholics. We have to be quiet. They think they're the only ones here. We have to be careful, therefore, not to fall into the trap of exclusiveness, for it is only egoism extended. And so don't be confused. Religion and spirituality, if read in this way, are different things. Spirituality has no I, me, or mine, wants to disown it completely, sees it as the biggest obstacle. But religion in that sense, religion in an organizational sense, an exclusivist sense, will say, we alone are true. We alone have the fullness of our truth. So that's the difficulty. That is called competitive religion. We make our God competitive. In language like the God of the Bible. See, God of the Bible is the same as God of the Quran, as I understand it, the God of Hinduism. or the God of Buddhism. It's the same God, isn't it? Even if you have an understanding in Africa, we don't have that kind of theism. In Africa, it's all to do with spirit worship, your ancestral spirits. Everything that goes right or wrong is due to pleasing or displeasing ancestral spirits. So this ancestral spirit worship, a kind of primitive kind of worship, even despite that, they will say, yes, but we have a great spirit. We can locate him in the sky if you like. And but then we leave it there because all the comings and goings are due to appeasement or otherwise of the ancestral spirits. So isn't that the same God too? Why should we have competitive God, competitive religions? There is only this oneness here. And the oneness is not only in you, it's through you, it's as you and beyond you. So we have to leave it there probably, because I think it's now 12:06. And thank you for the question. You see, the trap is also there amongst holy people. My holiness is better. And people will put a label, their own label on it. See, I'm the real teacher. They might put a label like that. Everybody else is, it automatically makes other teachers false. Something like that, you see. So the worth of somebody is not in the competitiveness. The worth of somebody is the closeness that they have to this unity of existence.
Does that mean then that, like, desire and fear, for that matter, maybe fear is negative, desire is positive, but they're coming out of a sense of incompleteness, and therefore they separate you from the one?
Yes, if you don't see things as a one, you'll see things as incomplete, as fragmented. If you don't see the fragmentation that we call the world as anything other than the unity, then you'll want to fill the holes in.
Yeah. But, you know, desires are so sort of natural, you know, or certain desires anyway, you know, say like the desire to procreate is natural.
Where you can look at it in a different way. Your natural being is pure consciousness. Therefore, desires are unnatural. So we have to look at it from that point of view also. When we make a mistake and misinterpretation of what the world is, then we have a desire to complete things. We see a disunity, we want a unity. The drive toward unity itself is the clue to our own nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can start off in a mild way, assuming that there's a goal at the top, something like top of a mountain.
Mm.
Then we have a desire to get to the top. Fine. That's a good, legitimate desire in a spiritual context. I have a desire to know God. I have a desire to be one with God. As we progress, we realize, oh, I see, and that oneness. We have to take, for example, the story in the Mundaka Upanishad of the two birds on the tree, one representing this perfection, the other one struggling to get it. I wish I was that bird on the top. Then I forget about it. Then all my satisfactions are in the eating of the fruits either side, the good and bad fruits of life, the tasty and bitter fruits. Life has a way of making the effect of that a very bitter taste that inspires us again to find out what is the completeness. This is incomplete, it's making me unhappy. This periodic forgetfulness will continue and become less and less and less until ultimately we stand on the very top and we realize, oh, I was that after all. I'm that one bird. I always was that. I always was that radiant one being.
Yeah.
It was my mistake. I thought I was this bird. And in all of that, the other point of view is I'm the witness looking at these birds. At the ultimate conclusion, we are one.
Yeah. Does that then mean that awareness of being the witness is a is a device for seeing the completeness.
Yes, so during meditation, we can stand where the radiant bird stands and then suffer from forgetfulness. The more we stand there, the more we realize the truth about it. Yeah. And when we understand oneness, there's an impossibility of fear. Fear is only there when there are more than one. In your deep sleep, all the fear is gone. Yeah. When there's a second, then there's a distrust, and then there's another person. If there's a second person, there's another one to compete with. So take the competitiveness away, but the competitiveness goes away when I, me, mine, that possessiveness, the prophet-actor complex goes away. Yeah. All right. All right, we leave it there. We finish off then. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.